All right, so now we're ready to look at a couple examples. The first one that you see is us finding the equation of a parabola with a focus at 1, -4 and directrix at y = 0. Now, a couple things here to keep in mind. First of all, we're trying to find the equation of a parabola. So that's going to be y = a x minus h squared plus k. Knowing that this is what we need to find, this tells us that we need two things. We clearly need the vertex h, k, and we also need a, which we know is 1/4p. So keeping that in mind as we move forward, those are the things that I need to find. Now what I'll do next is actually just plot a little bit of the information that's given. We know the focus is at 1, -4, so I'll put my focus right here. And I know the directrix is at y = 0. So we've got the given information on the screen. We know what we're looking for. And I think if you remember back to what P stood for in the last video, the distance between the vertex and the focus, and also the distance between the vertex and directrix, you can see now that our vertex has to be right here. We've got a distance there of 2. We've got a distance there of 2. So our P equals 2, which means our A is going to be 1/8. And we found A. It's pretty clear we found our vertex. Our vertex is at the point 1, -2. So if I take this information and I plug it into the equation of the parabola, I think I have it. So y equals the 1/8 x minus 1 squared plus 2. Now you do want to keep in mind when you draw this in, you can see that it would have to open down to fit the description of the definition. And when we talked about P, it was always a distance. So the A value is always going to end up coming out of the formula positive. It's up to us, though, to realize that since this opens down, we need to make sure to put a negative out in front of the 1/8 to denote the fact that it is opening down. So now in this example, we'll actually go ahead and we'll graph the entire parabola, and I have listed on the side of the screen the information that we'll need to fill in as well: vertex, focus, directrix, the intercepts, and then the axis of symmetry. Now to put this into standard form, we're going to need to complete the square. When you complete the square, it's always done with respect to a variable. So I'm going to need to factor out the 1/4 from everything with an x. So that's going to give us an x squared plus 2x, and I'll put the blank in. I have my -7/4, and to keep it balanced, remember these blanks always come in pairs, so I'll need to tack one on at the end there. So half of 2 is 1, and we square it. Now be careful, you took a 1/4 times a 1 squared, so to keep it balanced, we're going to have to subtract a 1/4. So we added a 1/4 in the parentheses, and now we're subtracting a 1/4, which is essentially adding 0. So then we would factor it into the x plus 1 squared, and then -7/4 and -1/4 is -8/4, so -2. So our vertex now we can see would be -1, -2. Okay? Some other information we could get out of this. Well, let me go ahead and I guess I'll put a rough graph up here so far. So -1, -2, and it opens up. So let's see. Maybe something like this. -1, -2, and it opens up. The focus and the directrix are going to be dependent upon the P value, and we know that A equals 1/4p. So if our A value is 1/4, you can see that P would equal 1. So with this parabola opening up, the focus is going to be 1 unit above the vertex, and the directrix is going to be 1 unit below the vertex. So that would mean our focus has a point of -1, -1. our directrix would have an equation of y equals -3. And then to find these intercepts, we'll just do this the same way we always have. To find a y-intercept, we let x equal 0. And from the original here, if x is 0, our y is going to be a -7/4, which is just a little more, a little before you get to the -2, right? -8/4 would be -2, so you can see we're cutting through about right there, which is correct. And then the x-intercept, this is found by letting y equal 0. So you can go back into the original if you want. If it factors, that's always a good idea. But I think right here it might be safer to go there because I don't believe the first one factors. At least I don't remember that it does. So if I take my y equals 0 and I plug it in, I'll go ahead and I will add 2 to both sides. Multiply by 4. And now I'm ready to square root both sides. So on the right we have this x plus 1, and on the left we have plus or minus 2√2. So x looks like it equals -1 plus or minus 2√2. So as points, we have -1 plus or minus 2√2, comma 0, which puts our intercepts somewhere like this. And then I'll come over the other direction, and my other intercept to be right there. So there's our graph. The last thing that we'll fill in now would be the axis of symmetry. All of these conics, because of how they come about, remember a plane intersecting a cone, will be symmetric. And so the axis of symmetry is going to be, in this case, the vertical axis that runs through the focus and the directrix. You can fold one side directly across it and lays right on top of the other. So for us, the equation of this would be x equals -1. And so that's all the information we'd be looking for.